My name is Tim O'Brien. I'm 43 years old now and a writer, but I haven't always been. In another life, I was a soldier. At the time, I didn't believe the war was where I was supposed to be. But as against it as I was, I still have never been able to let it go. I write about my experiences in Vietnam constantly. It's cathartic. It helps me to deal with what actually happened over there. Now, there's something you should know about my stories. Some of them actually happened, some didn't. But they're all true, all the same. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to share some of those stories with you. I thought I'd start by telling you about this one guy, Kurt Lemon. Lemon was a real character. He liked to live on the edge. One day, we were hiking deep in the jungle. It was about our third day there, and Lemon and Rat Kylie started goofing around. I guess they needed to let out some stress. Lemon and Kylie were playing this game where they pulled out the pins on smoke grenades and tossed them back and forth until someone chickened out. The game is normally harmless. What's not harmless is a booby-trapped 105 round. Lemon, while he was goofing around playing catch with a grenade, stepped right on one. When he died, it was almost beautiful. The way the sunlight came around him and lifted him up and sucked him high into a tree full of moss and vines and white blossoms. All the guys carried with them different things that helped them cope with the war. Mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever it was, everyone had something that helped them through the day. Kiowa carried a New Testament. Lieutenant Jimmy Cross carried photographs of a girl named Martha. What Ted Lavender carried was weed. He liked to get high and mellow out, to not worry about the stress of the war. Well, one day, Ted was very mellow. We were all sitting around talking when Ted got up to pee. Before he even had a chance to pull up his zipper, he was shot in the head. You know how the guys coped with his death? They joked about it. Jokes about a dead man. It really shows what the war does to you. Think of all the different possible ways to die. There are some pretty bad ones. Drowning, buried alive, any number of possibilities. It's hard for death to be pretty, but the absolute ugliest death I ever saw was Kiowa's. We had set up camp in a field of crap. Literally a field of crap. It was the sewage field from a nearby village. It was far from an ideal location, but we had been marching a while, and Lieutenant Jimmy Cross decided it would serve just fine. That is, until we got hit with a mortar strike. Right around the time when the third round hit, Norman Boker heard a noise. It was Kiowa screaming. He was stuck in a pile of crap, face first. He tried to yank him out, but Kiowa was stuck. Boker couldn't get him out, and if he didn't get out of there soon, he was going to be dead. So, he left him. After the war, Norman Boker went back home to Iowa. There wasn't much to do in his hometown, so one 4th of July, he got in his Chevy and decided to just drive. He drove and remembered. He remembered the incident with Kiowa. He already had 7 medals from the war. Norman's father is proud of those medals, but he doesn't know that Norman could have won one more, the Silver Star, if only he had saved Kiowa. But maybe his father would console him if he did. Maybe he would tell them that the 7 medals he did win are great. But Norman would never tell him. You remember when I said that all of my stories are true, but not all of them actually happened? Well, when I told the story about Norman the first time, I didn't tell what actually happened. He read one of my books and asked me to write about him and Kiowa. I wrote it, but changed things. I told a similar story, but left out Kiowa's death. I left out the sewage field. Norman didn't love it. He had sent me a letter telling me he felt life had lost its meaning. About a year later, Norman Boker killed himself. I hope the way I tell his story now helps to give his story some meaning. I'm still not sure why I write about all of these things. When I think about Norman Boker and Ted Lavender and Kurt Lemon, the anguish feels fresh. But while the writing brings back the pain, it also helps me to come to terms. And that's what I've always been after, reconciliation with what happened to Vietnam. For that reason, I'm going back to Vietnam, and I'm taking my daughter. Hopefully she will understand. When I write, I go back to those young days. I can see Kiowa and Kurt Lemon. I can even go back and see myself even younger, when I was a boy. I can see myself as little Timmy. When I relive these stories, I go back to another world, and when I come down 30 years later, I recognize it as Timmy trying to save Tim's life with a story.